life form tell them that was the case?
Our source had seen interaction between the silicon-based life form and other ETs, and he observed that there was a difference in place.
Okay, and which ETs are we talking about? Because to be honest with you, it makes no sense that we would be interacting with a silicon-based life form that likes to shapeshift, in essence, and which cannot speak English, whereas we have ETs walking around here who are perfectly capable of, having a dialogue with you or I. And
well, we didn't say that they couldn't communicate in English. They have the ability to entrain onto another person thoughts for short periods of time, 3 to 5 minutes. If there's going to be a longer interaction, what they need to do is they need to bring the human person into their environment, and that requires a modification. In the modification, you're able to understand them. The translation of the rocks hitting the bucket slowly turns into an understanding of what they're saying. Okay, so they can communicate. But what I'm saying is that if they want to do the groundwork and bring humans into a situation where there's a communication, they seem to like to use other ET races. It's easier for them.
Specifically, which ones?
One that we know of, but we don't know the scope that this particular species is allowed to communicate with humans is the reptilian. Now, this is very contentious because from what we have gleaned with this information and learned, this particular species of reptilian lives with the conformers in their environment. Now, our source has liaised extensively with this particular sect of reptilians. So we have learned from our source that it appears that this reptilian race differs completely to the conformers, and that is essentially a mystery of where this particular sect of reptilians comes from and what their relationship is.
And the other ET race is the tall whites.
Has Source A entertained the idea that this so-called crystalline structure is not actually truly how they look? That indeed they could be reptilian, and they could actually be reptilian in such a way that they're trying to mask the way they look, such that it wouldn't be acceptable to humans, and so they've donned this particular look.
Okay. We want to clear something up very, very carefully right now. There are two distinct species, no doubt with our source. There is this silicon-based life form. They are not reptilian in the sense. They are hot. The reptilians even warned our source, do not touch them. And our source, by the way, inadvertently had touched one where one of the appendages hit him on the arm and burned him. And we saw that burn. Now, it wasn't a long lasting. I believe it was a second degree because it was that quick. But no, this is very different. They are nothing alike. There is no masking of the fact that they could be the same species. We've gotten nothing on that, and our source would disagree with that. We are sure of that. So they are two distinct species. They work together. The question is what their relationship might be. That's a big question.
Is Source A remote viewer? Is he telepathic? Does he have special abilities? Are you familiar with Dan Sherman, who we interviewed, who was specifically trained to interact with ETs?
Yes.
Does he have abilities such as this, that they chose him?
No. To our knowledge, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know, but to our knowledge, that's never been mentioned to us, whether or not there were any remote viewing psychic connections, other than the fact that when he first met, there was a process of 300 people that was going to be reduced to 6 members.
I thought it was 150. Was it 300? 150, 300. It doesn't matter.
It was an enormous. It was a good size, and it was reduced to a 6-person team. Okay, now when they initially interfaced with the conformers in their biosuits, their first viewing of the conformers was that they saw someone of a fairly high diplomatic level walk into the front of the room, appear in front of the room, and start briefing them. Within 3 to 5 minutes, this particular level diplomat changed into the battleship undulating Plato-like figure. Okay? And so it subsequently became known to our source that they can only hold that entrained image for 3 to 5 minutes.
You said, okay, there were 150 people. Out of that, it was narrowed down to 6. And your friend, Source A, is not one of those 6. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And
why was he chosen if he doesn't have some special abilities?
Because of his analytical ability, period. He's made this known to us. In other words, let's go back in time to the Area 51 facility when he was interrogated, and he has brought this up more than once. When they showed him a photograph of our source looking up at this particular object or aeroform, now where the picture was taken was it was taken from the gravitic craft or the helicopter. I believe it was from the gravitic craft. He was looking up at it. So when they showed him that picture during interrogation, they said, "This is you. What are you doing? What are you looking? What did you say?" And he said, "Hey, that's a guy that looks like me." He did not infer or presuppose that was him.
And he was drugged at the time.
So that was very important. And he is one of the few people who did not break his interrogation training. And he is one of the few people who's been able to give an assessment of what he sees without introducing any assumptions or inferences. And he has said that he has been approached on this issue, I believe, about 6 times of why he was picked as a team leader. That's one. 2 is he has a great propensity for morale in leadership. And I have seen this from him. I have seen this from him in the company of others where, say, some information comes out that's absolutely ludicrous to, let's just say, to the group who happen to be there. He will not demean. He has a great ability to exhibit empathy and to have a greater understanding. So he does not get into ad hominem attacks or degrading people. So that is another reason. His age is another reason. The fact that he has the clearances is another reason. The TSSCI.
What you're describing is that he was chosen because he can interact well with the human side.
No, it's his analytical ability first, then his people skills second.
It sounds like he is more to handle the human side. Is he dealing directly with the entities?
Oh, absolutely.
He's interfacing literally with these entities.
We know 3 blocks of time where he directly interfaced with them over the last, I would say, year and a half.
Right.
Has he interfaced with them since, to your knowledge, since the last time you guys did an interview, which is beginning to sound like May of 2008?
Oh, yes.
Yes. I will say this, and I want to be very careful because I want to be respectful to Open Minds Forum, Carrie and Bill, because they've been great to us. They've respected our confidence, and they in our information. Here's what we can say, and this is probably new to most people. Besides the TDY, now I say TDY, that's an Air Force term. The first time he went, that was completely under Air Force control, even though he may have been team leader, Navy, okay? And incidentally, there were 2 Navy, 2 Army, 1 Air Force, and 1 Marine. Correct, Shawn?
Okay.
So who went on the first TDY. That was paid for and controlled by the Air Force. The second time was a TAD, a temporary assigned duty. That was Navy all the way. And there was a third time. We believe, we're not sure, but I'm fairly certain that was TAD all the way too. So we know of 3 times, definitely. And that's not counting the introduction. The first time when they saw the inter-service team was picked for the assignment when the conformers were in their biosuits. That would be a 4th time, but they did not see them outside their biosuits. They've seen them outside the biosuits 3 times at least. At least our source has seen them 3 times.
You refer to the guy who came in and briefed these men, but then it became apparent after a few minutes that he wasn't really a human being. He was one of these guys doing their conforming act, as it were, who could only hold it for a few minutes. Was this a physical shapeshift, or was this some manipulation of the observer's perceptions?
It was the manipulation of the observer's perception.
What we understand is that each person sees what they want to see in terms of the entity. So the projection is by the person, it's mirrored back. So there's a control on that aspect.
Got
So
it.
the conformer, so each will see a different person, but the conformer can only hold that telepathic venue for 3 to 5 minutes. And then what all six will see, they will see the conformer in their biosuit, that gray undulating mass that each experienced.
And subsequently, after that interaction, the group members got together and compared notes.
Is it known where this race comes from? And have they been interacting with us for a long period of time? Who are these guys? Where do they come from? What's their history since the 1940s with reference to the human race and so on?
We do not know where they come from. Even if, this is our sources said, even if they were able to convey where they come from, we would not understand it.
Okay, that's worrying.
Is it not under the earth, perhaps?
We don't know that. We don't think so because their atmosphere is such that they could survive. Even if it's hot, very hot, we don't know if the atmosphere itself, they could survive it. The reason why we say this is that when the team members went on the TDY, this is where we got our primary information, is that when they were modified inside the craft, their craft, incidentally, which was the size of a Staten Island ferry, very close to that, it smelled like burnt popcorn or burnt coffee, depending on the team member. One team member, Marine, said it smelled like burnt coffee, and our guy said it smelled like burnt popcorn. So there's obviously a difference in smell. So there may be different elements within the atmosphere that we cannot survive it. We don't know where they come from. We know so little about these people, or these things, excuse me. You have something to add? Hold on 1 second, guys. Go, John.
Well, what we can say is that the base, that they have a base in our solar system. Our source believes that base has been in place for quite some time,
a very long time,
and that his time frame, he can definitely say that they've been around since the pyramids. So, and they've been observing us. So they could have been much longer, but he didn't have a reference point much further back than that.
Okay. Does he have any idea how contact was first established and how this fits in with the timeline of accepted UFO history? Crash retrievals, contacts, Eisenhower, Roswell, all of that timeline that many of our listeners will be familiar with.
Are you asking, Bill, a historical timeline? Or are you asking from the point we have received information from our source, from what he's learned?
No, where in history did they first start contact with humans?
That's difficult to say. Only the fact that they've been observing since for about I would say 5,000 to 6,000 years. They've been observing at least.
At least.
In terms of the initial contact, not known. We can say that what happened was that the Navy received the program from the Air Force. Okay. Hello.
Hi there. We seem to be losing Bill. We just lost him again, unfortunately. Not sure what's going on there.
Do you want us to hang up and wait to get a call?
Yeah. Sorry about this.
No, it's okay.
No, it's all right. It's perfectly fine.
Terry, it's not a problem.
Well, it just means that we're being messed with. Maybe you're saying something you're not supposed to, which is heartening. But no, that was a joke. Anyway.
No, but listen, if we could tell you about the surveillance and what we've seen, we can talk a little bit about that, okay?
Yeah, that would be interesting. Definitely.
Sure, it lends credibility to the situation. So, but it's not definitive, but it's something to pay attention to. Okay?
Yeah.
Call us back when
you know what? I'm going
to
try to call Bill on a landline. That way, maybe we'll stop losing him. So, I'll call you right back.
Okay. Bye-bye.
I'm sorry about that. I just got completely bounced out and there's nothing I could do. Okay.
Not a problem, guys.
So the history of the contact that really leads us up to this present intrigue about why it is that this particular race seems to be at the heart of the whole disclosure thing. And from the point of view of most listeners, this will come as a surprise. There's going to be some cognitive dissonance.